Okay, so in this video right here, we're going to be talking to you guys all about the possible risk and also the threats involved in growing your Vandas in any types of containers. And I did want to remind all of you wonderful folks out there, if you have not yet subscribed to this channel, please be sure to go ahead and hit that subscribe button now so you'll be informed of the latest and greatest adventures where we share with you tips, ideas, suggestions, and all sorts of information having to do with and all about orchids. The more that we know, the more that we can grow. So go ahead and hit that subscribe button now. And because I grow my Vandas outdoors, it is especially important for me to be mindful of this, especially when we have a very heavy rainy season. So let's go ahead and talk about the structure of our Vanda orchids and also their growth habits so we can get a better understanding of why these dangers can exist. And when I do say Vandas, I am actually referring to vandacious orchids in general. So as we look at the plant structure of the Vanda, it actually looks somewhat and similar to a palm frond in the way that it grows. And it is considered a monopodial orchid in which the newest growth will always come from the very tip top. And as you can see, your vandacious orchid does have a stem-like structure in which the leaves grow. But as you're also noting, there is no type of pseudobulb at all on this vandacious orchid. And that means that this plant right here has no type of energy on reserve. Unfortunately, there is no backup plan at all for this vandacious orchid. What you see is what you get. The foliage system and also the root system. That's it, and that's all, folks. So it is that critical that we maintain the structure of this orchid. And speaking of root systems, oh me, oh my, do they have a root system? Why, yes they do, and quite an exuberant amount of them. That is one of the highlights of why we love these vandacious orchids. But because these roots are so impressive, we also have to understand that they are also quite aggressive as well. And when we purchase these vandacious orchids, oftentimes they will come in these plastic pots or also the wooden baskets as well. And the containers are actually to maintain the roots and also keep the plant a little bit more well balanced. And here is where it gets really ugly, folks. Because the root system of a vandacious orchid is so aggressive, if you are trying to contain and maintain it within a container, what it has a tendency of actually doing is intertwining so tightly, and because it aggressively grows, it becomes quite a root ball system in which air circulation is not free to flow, and also it actually retains a lot more moisture than it should. And let's see what happens after that. If we look deep within the root ball system, you may see those orangey colored spots in there. And what that actually is mold growth. That's right, and it's throughout this orchid root system. So because not enough air circulation is in here, and because it is maintaining that soppy wetness within the root system, you are having fungus actually growing within the roots, which can be devastating to your vandacious orchids. And to bring home the point of how devastating this can be with a Vanda, this right here is a fungus infection. It is growing mold. And as you can see, it started infecting this area right here, the top portion, and I did not cut it off in enough time. And if we go down at the base of the stem area, you will see that this did have 2 keikis growing at the base. And it's very unfortunate because as you can see right there, that fungus infection has taken place, and it's also invaded this particular keiki right here as well. And the infection is pretty extreme. It is going to take those keikis out and this entire vandacious orchid right here. That is the very unfortunate and very scary fact of these fungus infections. Now, with these wooden containers, not only can they pose as the same threat as the plastic containers, but they can also do something else. Because whenever we do water our vandacious orchid, we also have to keep in mind that the basket itself also becomes wet, and the wood will actually retain and absorb the water as well, and eventually that can lead to a breakdown of the actual wood and wood particles. So yes, they will eventually break down and break apart. And because this has been a normal occurrence within my Vandacious orchids, I have decided to go ahead and transition all of my Vandacious orchids to the point where they are not only bare rooted, but we are talking about being completely out of containers. So they will be just bare rooted and let's say just bare hanging. And right here we have a Vandacious orchid, and if we take a look at the very bottom, you are seeing that it does not have any type of container at all, and it is just attached to that metal hanger, and it is just simply hanging out right there. That's it, and that's all. And I've done this to many of my Vandas already, so we are slowly transitioning them over to this type of growing method. Just bare hanging out, guys, bare hanging out. No more containers for these guys. And for me, I think that's going to be so beneficial for these orchids. We're not going to have to worry about those containers retaining those roots so tightly and having those roots actually choke each other out, basically is what it's doing. They're so tightly intertwined and not enough air circulation or no air circulation in some areas. And also the water flow is not there. It's being contained within those tight roots, and again it's choking each other out and inviting mold and fungus to actually grow within, and proving such a devastation to these types of Vandacious orchids. So we are eliminating that risk. And speaking of transitioning our orchids over, I'm going to go ahead and take that Vanda that had all of that mold growing within the root system, and we're going to go ahead and cut it loose from the basket container and from all that mold infection. And the main thing to remember anytime we're doing this type of surgical process is to go ahead and sanitize whatever equipment that you are going to be using. And whenever we are dealing with cutting Vandas, the main important thing is to have at least 2 to 3 good roots. And as you can see, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We're actually going to cut it right here, guys, right there. And that's going to give it enough root, and it's also going to have enough area where it's going to cut it loose from, again, that infection. And here we go, right there. Okay, that simple and that easy. And here she is, folks, absolutely cut away from all of that nastiness right there. Yay, I feel so relieved. And if we take a look, good cutting right there. And indeed, he feels so fresh and so clean. And I have to tell you, he has a whole lot of weight off of his shoulders and also off of these roots. And I do have to tell you, I do not like growing any of my Vandas in any potted material or any pots at all, because I just believe that with Vandacious orchids, they have such a vigorous root system. It is so important that you're able to check out those roots and monitor how those roots are doing. And with potted up orchids like this, you definitely will not be able to see or monitor those roots. Now, if you're growing your orchids in these types of containers, will this always occur? No, not necessarily. It just depends on your growing environment and your conditions. Some people grow their Vandas in these containers and do absolutely fine. So please don't think that if you have them in containers, this will happen to you. But for me, folks, this is a natural occurrence, something that I face and deal with. So I indeed wanted to share with you guys my experience, also give you something to think about, contemplate on, and chew on in the regards to how you may want to grow your Vandacious orchids. Now, how you grow your Vandacious orchids is totally up to you. But whatever you choose, I am hoping success and absolute prosperity for you in your growing adventures. And that, my friend, is an absolute Vanda growing in containers wrap, exposing some of the dangers that could possibly occur. I thank you guys so much for hanging out with me right here in my garden, and I hope you come back and visit me often. And I hope you guys liked this video, and hopefully you did learn something new. If you did like this video, please be sure to like, share, and also subscribe. And join me on Facebook as well. I thank you guys so much, and you guys already know that I truly do love and appreciate you guys all. I'll talk to you guys later, and I will also grow with you guys later. Bye-bye.